Aaron Lewis from Liberty New Norfleet here with Tommy Lepore here from Hello everyone, welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast powered by Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com. We got Dave Penning coming up next week talking some more Game 7 Baseball. We got some discounts, some tournament discounts. First week of December, got to get those taken care of. It's in your cart. It's after the first week of December. I believe that ends on December 7th. I'm not quite sure, but I know the first week. So make sure you're getting that taken care of. We're going to be talking some good stuff with Mr. Penning next week. So Game7Baseball.com. Today on Prep Baseball Talk, we got a guest with us. We're Adam Jahnsen from Ace Baseball Development. Adam, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no. And as always, I've got the guru, the PBR guru, Kevin Mulder. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. How you guys doing?
I look good.
I'm not a guru.
You are. Oh boy, I messed that up.
Man, you walked right into that one, didn't you?
And to my right, Matt Shadow, the guru of all things baseball. How's that?
Yeah, that's much, but I'll go with it.
How we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. And you are keeping it busy, man. You got it rolling over there.
It's busy.
Yes, it is.
It's busy.
So
we're
busy
good.
time of year, isn't it, Matt?
I think they're all busy, but
yeah,
we're really busy now because we're starting. The high school kids start coming in for baseball stuff. The weight training they've been doing, but the baseball stuff they start this weekend. So
it's December, isn't it? Man, it jumps right in. Boom.
Yeah.
And that's why we've brought Mr. Jahnsen into the show today. He is the founder, owner of Ace Baseball Development Pitching. He's on the show today. We're going to talk about some pitching instruction, some things of that nature. We've been wanting to get him on the show for a while. Adam, kind of talk to the folks a little bit about your background, how you got started and all this.
Yeah, so I've basically played baseball my whole life. Went to Pacific High School, played for Coach Jeff Reed, who's still the head coach there. Went to Forest Park, then went to Xavier. Once I was done at Xavier, played for the Grizzlies in 2003. I was then invited to Cardinal Spring Training in 2004. Got released, had some arm issues, shoulder specific. And then I started working for Balls and Strikes in roughly 2006. Worked some summer camps, did a bunch of lessons. And then we started Ace in 2016. Used to be in the Balls and Strikes Chesterfield. Now we're inside the facility in Chesterfield Elite Performance Academy. And we've been kind of doing that ever since.
So, obviously, I know Adam. Got a question for you.
Yep.
So you have it's Ace Baseball Development Program. Now, before you were technically Ace Pitching, right? But you offered more than pitching.
Yeah, so we started off as Ace Pitching Academy, but then we got more and more position players reaching out.
Correct, yeah.
Infielders, catchers. So we kind of switched gears and changed the name to Ace Baseball Development because we were getting those kids contacting us as well. And, we're all about throwing, helping guys move better, throw better. So that was the reason for the name change.
But I think it's good for people to understand that it's not just – you're not just going to Ace, specifically Ace, to just pitch. You're going there whether you could be a catcher, a shortstop, an outfielder – for arm strengthen your arm.
Yes, I mean it is a lot more than arm strengthening. Obviously, strength and conditioning plays a big part of it. I mean, I think every kid needs that foundation first. But you're getting these kids that are playing in front of schools and showcases and that kind of stuff. We want to kind of, learn how to move better and move safer as well.
And I think that's a big misconception, and you guys probably agree with me on this. When you talk to a parent and you say, hey, I want to do, hey, there's this pitching program, but my kid doesn't pitch. And then you've got to go through the whole explanation of, well, it's more than just pitching. If you're a pitcher, then yes, you can do something pitching specific. But if you're a catcher, I mean, your pop time is important, but also, like you said, being able to move and getting the arm strength, but also the movements better for said position can be very beneficial for them to be a part of a program like this. Correct?
Without a doubt, because you could,
yes.
You could argue that those position guys throw more than us pitchers in game, so those guys need some of the same stuff. They need to learn how to warm up properly. They need to know how their body moves as a system. So it's very, very, very beneficial for those guys as well.
And I think the big thing that people need to take out of this is the movement part. It's because Kevin and I have had this conversation. Can you move? It's all about moving. You look at a kid and you're like, yeah, I'm big, I can hit bombs. Yeah, but you can't move. You know what I mean? So I think the thing that Adam is hitting on, sorry to cut you off, Kevin, is the movement. Movement. Can you move? Which is what he's hitting the point. Sorry.
Which helps you sustain results over a long period of time.
So as a coach for, a college coach for 16 years and et cetera, he used to always drive me nuts. Like the pitchers always did a great job of taking care of their arms, playing a focused game of catch. And it was interesting because you'd have kind of the reverse problem. Like at the beginning of practice, when everyone's playing catch, the pitchers did phenomenal, and the pitchers or the positional players were down the other line just doing a terrible job, joking around, talking about whatever was happening that day or that weekend. And so you'd have to really harp on those guys to handle that part of the game. And then, when you get to the rest of the practice, the roles kind of flipped because the pitchers were kind of done with their important part. But I used to always talk to positional players, and, if you want to move on in this game, you have to be able to throw the baseball. You talk to, pro scouts, college coaches, there aren't many spots for guys that can't throw. Yes, there's one DH. So if you're going to be one of the 30 best hitters in the world, okay, go do that, which is extremely hard to do. But usually those DH jobs go to guys that are aging, that don't move as well anymore, that are established hitters. They're usually not 21, 22-year-old guys. In colleges, positionally, they're recruiting, Matt, better than anyone just from running an organization. They always want the left side infielders, the shortstops, the catchers, oftentimes center fielders, and then they move guys around when you get to college. So if you can't throw, it's hard to move on, no matter how good a hitter you are.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin's right. From a college standpoint, the two easiest positions to get kids to the next level, pitching is number one, catching is number two. From my experience, those are the two most important positions that a college coach wants, and it's the ones that are needed the most. And what do both of those guys do a lot?
They throw. That's it. So, Adam, when you're talking about the development on either side, are the programs pretty similar when you're talking about position players and the arm care? Does the process become pretty similar?
It is very similar. It all depends on when the kid starts with us. It all depends on his foundation of strength, stability, mobility. All those guys are assessed beforehand. But it is very similar to a certain point. Some of the throwing drills are different for the position guys based on their position. Some of the drills they do, their throwing workload might change a little bit too. But it's somewhat similar.
Now, for you, what is the difference for you for the youth and for the high school in your development and how you treat the kids?
Right, so that's interesting. So before I started ACE, like many of us, it was private lessons. It was half-an-hour lessons. We dealt with more youth. Unfortunately, right now, we don't work with a lot of youth at the moment. It's mostly high school, college, and some pro guys. But I'd say one difference is just knowing what kind of workload, knowing what to kind of cover with those young guys. I mean, obviously, we don't talk a lot of data stuff with those guys. They don't. We're not worried about velocity at that age. We want those guys to move athletically. We want those guys. You got to keep it fun for those young guys too. I'm very much about the fundamentals at that age. Without trying to make them robotic and mechanical. I like to really talk about, the fundamentals, fastball grip, changeup grip. You got to keep it fun with those young guys. Not that it's not fun for the high school and college kids, but we can obviously do a lot more with those guys because they're more physically developed, mentally and physically.
Well, it's a different game when you get to 14, 15 years old.
Right.
Well, but it's a different game for what they're coming to you for. Because a lot of those kids are coming because I'm assuming you get kids that are, hey, I want to play at the next level. I need to get better. Get me better. Or you get a kid that's, like you said, college kid, who, hey, I'm throwing 90, 91. I need to get to 94. Can you help me?
Right.
Yeah.
Or I want to develop that second or third off-speed pitch. Yeah.
Which we've had this.
Some of the finer stuff.
You got to be able to spin it.
Yep.
Nowadays, you got to be able to spin it.
Without a doubt.
Kevin, jump in there.
Talk to us a little bit about, the phases of the off season, or like, your thoughts, because I feel like too large of a population of high school baseball players get serious about high school baseball about 2 weeks before tryouts. It gets to be, Super Bowl just happened. Oh, okay, high school tryouts are coming up here in a couple weeks. Talk to us about the importance of kind of training this at this point. Are guys throwing full-on bullpens right now? Are they long tossing? What are you getting dudes to do to get ready for high school season that's, not even for, 3 or 4 months?
Right. So whenever I first started ACE in 2016, I always joke about this. I think back then we started in November, and I think we lost 10 kids after that first month because we weren't throwing bullpens yet. I think a lot of kids and parents sometimes think more is better as far as if I throw bullpens year round, or if I throw bullpens in October, I'll be ready for March, high school tryout. So most of our guys start in October as far as what I consider their off-season training. Now, most of those guys have a good foundation of strength. The new kids that come to us in the summer, it is mandatory to at least participate in a strength and conditioning program for a month before they see us. We really push that point across. It's the strength and conditioning, whether stability, mobility, strength, that's going to give them, possibilities of moving better. Obviously kids want to throw harder, which will never change. But so the strength side is the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing. So basically for the first month and a half, it's all foundational stuff, teaching guys how to move from the center. We do a lot of medicine balls where it's, taking stress off the arm itself. Our fall ball guys, we actually push them back at least 3 or 4 weeks since they've been throwing probably spring, summer, and fall. They're on a slightly different program because I don't want them participating in the same exact program as a kid who might have, put the ball down for a few weeks after summer. So basically trying to get them to move better without throwing a baseball for the first 6 weeks is very, very, very important for us. It is sometimes hard to get the new kids to buy in because they're not used to it. They want to throw a baseball. They want to be on the mound. If I don't do it now, I'm not going to be ready for March. So we have to kind of educate them on the positive aspects of that. And then basically mid-November through mid-January, it's volume, intensity, and distance building in 75-foot catch, 90-foot catch, 120, 150, trying to build that motor to then pitch. Our first bullpen start typically mid-January for the average kid. Now, if a kid does have an event or if he is playing a preseason tournament in early January, we do have to modify their program, somewhat reluctantly. But, most guys, again, it's that build-up process that I think works so well because, our biggest thing is trying to get these kids to understand, and parents, you have to slow cook it. You cannot, you can't rush it. Year one is not going to be your best year. I mean, year two, year three with us should be better, working on more of the finer things. But I think trying to get people to buy into the slow cooked process is the most difficult, but the most important part of this.
I would agree with him on this because I deal with this firsthand. And there's a kid in particular that Kevin and I have had a conversation with that's at ACE that I've had to have conversations with about where you're going to be in the end. Let's not look at where you're at now at 15, where you're going to be in the end.
Right.
And my question, I guess, to either one of you is, I kind of have a problem with there's certain high school coaches, we're not naming names, that they run their winter practices because they can and they want to get their kids and see them and do their things. When we have a kid, said kid comes in and says, hey, here's my program that I'm running through ACE. Run your program, do whatever you have to do. That's whatever you're doing. I'm on board. Let's go. High school coaches don't always have the same mindset as that. And you get like a Perkins. He gets it, man. Like he's if you got a kid that said, hey, I'm an ACE, this is what I'm doing, he's going to say, great, do whatever you want. But all of them don't have that mentality because it's, well, I need to see you throw. Well, I haven't thrown yet. Well, it's January 5th. You haven't thrown yet? Like, let's go. Like, get on the mound and start throwing. Not to name names, but I guess the big key is, for you, is there a factor, how do you attack the process of really informing the kids on the knowledge that they need to have on what they're doing so they can then relay that to their summer or high school coach? Because I think that's a big part of it. Is the knowledge of them knowing, what am I doing, and can I tell other people what I'm doing so they are on board with what I'm doing, if that makes sense, or if I confused everybody.
No, and it's kind of funny that you brought that up because I was kind of telling somebody else this today, actually, last week. So basically, when they come into us, they're roughly with us about an hour and 20 minutes total. So once they get through a certain part of their program, we always meet so that each kid knows what throwing they have that day, because they're not all doing the same distance, the same intensity. And I brought this topic up because I have a kid who walked up to me and said that he's been asked to throw bullpens this time of year with his coach. And I've kind of talked to all the groups. We absolutely want our guys participating in their club training practices, their high school open gyms. They have to do that. We don't want anyone ever telling their high school coach or club coach, hey, I can't come in, I'm going to ACE. No, we want you to be able to work through all this together. So, basically my whole message was, make sure whatever throwing you're doing outside of our program, try to stick with what we're doing as far as distance and intensity. But also please communicate to all parties, whether it's us, high school coach, or the club, what you're doing so you're not doing double. I have no problem at ACE if kid walks up to me, let's say it's February, hey, I threw a bullpen in my open gym. That's awesome. Okay. We had you on the plan for throwing a bullpen here. We're going to scratch that. Now that's recovery day. And it's okay. It's completely okay because, those kids, I guess parents to a certain extent, I want the kids to be able to learn how to communicate between all coaches. They also have to advocate for themselves while also coming across coachable. They're not trying to tell the coach how to do his job. They need to, if they're going to be part of a program like ours, a club team, and on a high school team like all kids are, they have to be able to make all three work. I don't want anyone ever falling in love with what we do at ACE enough to say, hey, I can't go to my high school open gym. I can't go to my club. No, we want this to work for everybody. but that kid has to learn how to communicate and speak up. Most kids don't. You'd like them to, but they have to be the one in the middle kind of communicating.
I like that. And I get one point, and I think this has got to be one of your main missions. I assume you're trying to arm these kids to be successful outside of the building, right? So when they go to that practice, they go to their game, they get into their season, they know how to properly prepare themselves, whether that you're there or they're by themselves or they're at a high school. Is that kind of the goal?
Without a doubt, we always make that joke. Kids always give me trouble. Like around February, I always kind of give them the whole talk. Hey, sometime in the spring, the bus is going to be late. So you have 20 minutes to warm up. It might not be the most ideal way to do it, but here's an alternative because again, we don't want these guys, to use us or a program as a crutch. They have to be able to adapt to different conditions, different coaching styles, whatever it is. But yes, our goal is to basically teach them well enough to where they can do it outside of the building. Okay. But they also know, what their throwing workload looks like on a daily basis. Every off season, I kind of email the kids and parents like a sample week. Now you have some guys who are two-way guys, but we give them a sample throwing schedule to perform outside of ACE. It's not that I don't want to see these guys in the spring, but come springtime, we're the other guys. They answer to their high school coaches. So the more they can learn this stuff and perform it on the field, the better.
I don't know if you guys saw this or not. It was one of the best things from this past Cardinal season. Were you guys able to watch the live version of Adam Wainwright on ESPN warming up? Yeah, I thought that was a great message. He obviously has a routine that he prefers, but he talked about not being captive of a certain routine and being able to make adjustments on the fly. And he talked about, hey, when I was younger, I couldn't have done this interview because I was so focused. And as I matured and got older, I realized that my job, more or less my job is to be ready, and you got to be able to kind of fit into that schedule. That's I feel like that's one of these trainers and programs such as ACE have gotten so good at developing these players, but occasionally you do see players kind of fall into the trap of, oh, I'm good because of I do this, and if I don't do this, then I can't be good. Kind of talk about the dangers of that and like how important it is to stay away from that. And Matt, do you see that with on the club scene in the summer circuit, and like pitchers with excuses on why they didn't throw good because I didn't have a plyo wall or whatever at the field? Or that makes sense?
Yeah, I'll go first, and then Adam can go about how he entertains that side of it. I've had kids that have taken 45 minutes to an hour to get ready for a game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like, how early do you want to get there? I mean, you're going to throw a whole game prior to throwing a game. And then you have kids who, I'm a starter, I can't really relieve. Okay, so what are you going to do when you go to college? What are you going to do if you get drafted? You're just going to tell, hey, look, Pirates drafted me, but I told them, man, like, look, I can't come out of the bullpen. I'm a starter. I was like, at some point you got to figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you also get kids who, like you said, really at 15 in the fall, they're so zeroed in on their routine that they need to follow that if you offer anything different or change anything, whether it's a 15-minute, 30-minute, the game goes extra innings, hey, you need to be ready in 15 minutes. Oh, I'm not going to be ready in 15 minutes. And then you get the kid who's like, yeah, I haven't played catch yet, but I'll go throw. There's no balance for some of these kids. Right. But go ahead, Adam.
No, without a doubt. That's exactly right. We obviously believe in everything we teach. We think it does need to go phase by phase, and but I do talk to the kids, and maybe this is going to sound bad. It's going to work against us, but like, don't don't rely on the program so much that you can't function outside of the program. We tell the guys, if you just, because most of their pre-throwing warm-ups for the most part stay pretty consistent through the off season. Um, you know, we will tweak things here and here. I know that I talk about it a lot with the coaches. Like, I think the best programs change. So, you can't just give them a sheet of paper and then, have them go. You got to know when to call the audible. So my whole point is, when it comes to the spring, high school practice, high school games, it's very much unlike the facility because the facility doesn't change. I mean, the weather, all the tools that we have, but they have to be able to take parts of the program from ACE or the other great pitching companies in St. Louis and, use that on the field at their practice. If it takes them longer to warm up, they got to find a way to get there earlier, but they can't live and die by that program. That's not the goal. I mean, I want them to trust us. Don't get me wrong, but they can't live and die from the program.
There's a couple points here just from this that I want to kind of go back to and deal with. Communication, for one, because you would talk about dealing with the coaches, and then the second, adaptability. And, teaching these kids to communicate with a high school coach. I think that is going to be, I think, a huge leap because many of these kids, their communication skills are not at that level yet. You ask them a question and they may know the answer, but they don't know how to answer you. They're maybe a little afraid to answer the coach. How do you help them in that communication process saying, hey, let's, developing that relationship?
Right. I mean, we talk about that all the time. I mean, it's not just movements, arm care, strength, all that kind of stuff. Like you do have to have those conversations, sometimes tough, because all these kids want to play college baseball. To be more specific, they all want to play Power 5 college baseball. So you have to kind of teach them that, it's very, 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 very difficult. It's very time consuming. It's not just, how you throw a baseball. So we try our best to kind of have those conversations with those kids. Because again, I mean, if they sign up for an off-season program, they sign up to play for this club and they go to this high school, they signed up for it, so they have to learn how to communicate. But it has to be, it can't be combative. It can't be like, coach, you don't know what you're talking about. Ace does. It's one of those things where we try to get them to understand that they have to have those tough conversations, which will then also prepare them to play at the highest levels because it's not just about throwing a baseball.
Thoughts on that? Yeah,
he's right.
You deal with it all the time, don't you?
Every winter, summer, spring, fall. The same.
I kind of have a pointed question it wasn't too long ago the average big league fastball was about 90 miles per hour, and it has climbed up, and now literally every bullpen in the big leagues has guys throwing 100 miles per hour, and obviously doing what I do at PBR. It used to be and it still is a big deal, but if there was a kid that threw 90 in high school, like he was famous. Now there's a bunch of kids that throw 90. Why is that happening? And then B, what are, if you want to throw hard, what are the key ingredients to throwing harder, Adam?
I think the first question, obviously there's more access to certain tools, whether it's in facility, social media, online. I think, especially right now, players have access to world-class information, whether it's on the strength training side, whether it's on the throwing side, how to move. But also I think kids are trying to throw harder, which, is positive and negative from social media. Like they see guys doing it more, so they're physically trying to throw the ball harder. So maybe their intent goes up. Maybe they become more explosive. I think that's why guys are throwing harder because they're watching this stuff that says, hey, these guys that throw harder have a better chance to make it to the next level.
I think a big component in these programs, and let me know if you agree with me or disagree with me, is obviously the velo. That's obvious. Everybody shows up for the velo. But nowadays, if you want to go to, say, Alabama, if you're throwing 96, 97, but you can't spin it, they can go find somebody else that can throw 93 with a wipeout slider, curveball, and they'll take that kid. And I know this because the assistant coach at Alabama, I know personally, he played for Midland, and that's what he tells me. How does that, do you see any of that when kids walk in at, this is probably kids more at the next level that you have, and how do you address it?
So I think I've actually got this question quite a bit, and I've actually had a lot of time to think about it. I think no matter what you teach as a coach, I think every player has their own definition of success. For instance, I mean, I just want to play pro ball, or I just want to play college, or I want to get to college or pro ball. Those guys tend to be the velo at all cost guys. Okay. But if but you also have kids who want to be very successful on their high school team, college team, pro team, and stick and be able to pitch and get guys out. Those are the guys that it's really easy on us with those guys because they get it. But I mean, you're exactly right. To pitch at the next level, I mean, even high school baseball, to pitch, you have to be as well-rounded as possible. You absolutely have to. You know what I mean? I prefer, I guess if we had complete control of this, which we don't, I would love to have every high school kid be 85, 87, have 2 off-speed pitches that they can locate at any time, high baseball IQ, and then gain the velo in college. I was kind of joking about that. Like, that'd be the ultimate guy. Like, have that guy who can pitch at a young age, who absolutely has the baseball IQ. Not that, yes, he can throw 3 pitches for strikes, but watches the game, has baseball IQ. Maybe in college you see that velo jump. Now, we have some control of that. Don't get me wrong. We don't have a lot of control of that because kind of kids peak at different times. But yeah, it is hard. It is, really, really difficult getting those brand new kids into the program that think it's velo. And I was kind of talking to Brian about that. I don't I almost take it personal being considered. I take it personal. People call this a velo program. I know what they mean, sort of, but I want these guys as well-rounded as they can be, because they're going to keep developing in college. Pro guys keep developing, every single year. So
a good example of the pitcher that he's referring to that they're familiar with is Josh Newell. I had Josh, obviously, for a long time, but 2 years ago, his velo wasn't. He's at Lindenwood now, and apparently he's doing very well. He wasn't 90 in the summer. Two-way guy, right. Which Kevin and I have had this conversation, just by gas by the summer. He was probably 84, 85. But his changeup was so freaking good. He threw 7 innings for us in the summer, a 7-inning complete game shutout against the GRB Rays, who had 3 kids going to, I want to say, Michigan at the time. And he threw 74 pitches in 7 innings and was lights out. He was throwing 2-0 changeups like it was a fastball. And kids like that I would take all day. All day. Josh, one of our favorite kids.
We've never had to tell a kid like that, hey, stop throwing so hard on recovery day. Hey, stop worrying about the radar. That kid kind of did things the right way and, took it step by step. Then when he came in, he was really, really good. He was, he's a guy who had the right mindset. He could pitch. And then that's the kid that you knew that once he got to college, stopped playing that second sport. Not that there was anything wrong with it in high school at all, but, he had more time to put into it as his body was ready for it. I can see him having a ton of success because he knows how to pitch.
And stop playing shortstop,
Yes.
which was
And
another
stop
factor.
playing shortstop
Yeah.
on his off days. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that kid
Fletcher
knows
said
how
he's
to
doing
pitch.
very
He's going to
well.
have a lot of success.
Yeah. Fletcher said he's doing very well.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
And Kevin, that's been a point you've made for a long time. Is these kids are playing multiple positions. They're usually the guy that is the star player, and they're playing shortstop, center field, or you even see some of these kids going behind the plate and catching at times. And that's difficult to do and to maintain that type of velocity throughout a whole season.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. We talk about that often, and Josh Newell's the perfect example. And Adam was talking about kind of the slow cook to some of these guys, and in high school, Josh Newell had to play shortstop. He was the best option, and it wasn't even close for his high school team. And he was a really good high school shortstop, and maybe could have played at some smaller schools even in college. But long term, we kind of knew all along, hey, pitching's the thing for him, and it's going to be a lot of fun over the next couple of years to watch him to continue to develop locally right here at Lindenwood.
That's what I like. We can go watch him play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, let's do this, and we'll finish up here with this. We were talking beforehand a little bit, and this last topic, technology is always the question, right? How much does technology do this, that? And I liked Adam's answer when we were talking beforehand a little bit, because technology, you go in. I've seen some of these places. I said, you got 45 nodes all over you, and we're measuring statistics like crazy. And statistics are fine. I love the analytics. I think they're great measurables and understanding how to develop. But what's the mix for you guys here, Adam?
Yeah, so I think all that stuff is absolutely fantastic. It is growing the game. It is taking the game to a level it's never been. I think the biggest thing is, knowing the player in front of you. How much of that stuff they can handle, how much of that stuff they need. Guys who, I don't like to get too far on the old school side or the new school side. It's always that middle ground. And then, if you're dealing with a kid who's completely old school, you might have to go more new school or vice versa. So I think it's great. We're in fact talking right now in this phase of the program about changeups right now. And I showed the group a video of Devin Williams, Trevor Hoffman, and the thing is, I was kind of telling those guys, Trevor Hoffman's more over the top. He's going to have some more vertical break. Devin Williams is more sidearm. He's got more horizontal break. So my whole point is, like, for those guys to know who they are, and then try to basically work towards those strengths. For instance, if you're an overhand guy, you're probably not going to have a changeup like Devin Williams, but there's some characteristics that both share. So I think, all the biomechanics stuff is great. All the Rapsodo TrackMan stuff is fantastic. It's just knowing how much of that stuff to talk about with each individual kid. Because it does help those kids really understand, like, what we're trying to teach by watching spin axis, watching the ball move a little bit. But we don't want those guys, again, to absolutely fall in love with it when they may not be a strike thrower yet, or they're not moving right yet. So you kind of have to know how much of that stuff to talk about with each specific kid.
You can also teach them who they are, right? Where they need to be pitching, what pitches to be throwing. High spin guys typically want to be up in the zone, rule of thumb. Low spin guys, more old school, down by the knees. It can kind of tell you, and like Adam suggested with the changeup there, your arm slot was going to tell you maybe what pitches you have the best chance of being successful with, right?
Yep. Yeah, and
Go ahead.
Same thing goes with the breaking ball too. Like, we just want these guys knowing who they are, and I always tell the kids, I want you to know what's coming out of your hand, because it'll teach you everything. Like, if you think you're throwing a curveball, but you're throwing a slider, well, now it kind of changes things. You might be inconsistent because you don't know where to release the ball, or where to start the pitch, I should say. So, big thing is like knowing who they are and attacking those strengths, but also knowing when to dabble in, some of their weaknesses to make them a more well-rounded pitcher.
Technology, in my mind, is how you use it and how you apply it. And you can fall in that trap, and I think kids fall in the trap of relying too much on the numbers of whatever. I mean, there's devices like that he has that are fantastic that they use, but they use to then teach. So it's different than saying, hey, I'm going to buy a freaking TrackMan for my garage. Cool, it's going to collect dust. I mean, you use it for a couple of weeks, then what are you going to do? You know what I mean? And I think that's the big thing. It's the same as all these little things, devices that you see, especially now at Christmas online. Hey, this ball's got 3 colors. Throw it like this. Throw it like this. Okay, well then it sits in a bag for 6 months. You know what I mean? Like it has to be used consistently and has to be used in the correct way. And they obviously use things in the correct way because he just said he teaches based on spin rates, numbers, slots, arm slots, but
right. And it's also also knowing your audience. I mean, obviously the pro guys can use it a lot more than the college guys. College guys can use it a lot more than the high school kids. So it's knowing how much to give these guys, based on the level that they're at.
And I'm sure you love this, and I love it when you get a 12U dad walking in saying, "Hey, I want to use your TrackMan. I want to use this. I want to use that."
Oh yeah.
Dude, like, why don't you? I mean,
there's another subject.
I mean,
we talk about this a lot. I mean, 8 to 14. We brought that up earlier. Instruction. You say you're dealing with that. You'd like to do a little more with the younger kids, but in all actuality, where do those things separate, and what do you do? And just from your perspective, and I think this is a healthy discussion. A 12-year-old, do they need TrackMan right now? Do they need these things? A coach may keep it and keep the information, help them teach, but is it really that necessary to show a kid what his exit velo is right there at 8, 9, 10, 11? Because what's it really for in that respect, other than teaching kids?
my 7-year-old doesn't even know what exit velocity means. So,
Right.
I mean, I think they use it as more like an entertainment thing, or hey, I was
correct
50 exit velo this year, and then next year. So they see the progress and development that is happening, despite if they have one of those, devices or not. So I think sometimes, especially these days, kids want to see it. So I think that might be why some guys use it with those guys. It's just motivation. It's entertainment. It kind of shows them, hey, I am making progress. But so, I guess if you need to, use that, to kind of keep that kid interested, it's going to have some benefits. But those guys, obviously don't need it as much as the older guys.
I agree. And I think that's a great point. Entertainment value. Some of the kids do the games during the off season when it's in the cages because it can get boring. And I think that's a great point. Just for the entertainment's sake, because you can see when you have a group, 2 teams at 9, 10U, you can see which kids have the exit velocity, and 2, you're using a bat that, is definitely not.
Well, they're also the kids that have hit puberty a little quicker at those ages too.
Right.
So.
I think it's also teaching those guys the process which creates the exit velo, is the big thing too. It's all about the process. I mean, like that number is a byproduct of many, many different things, So it is valuable, but don't, again, don't live and die by that. It's how you get there. It's the progress you make every year.
So, and to finish on this with the youth side, do you think it's more important, they're not going to be strength training. You don't get the kid 9 years old out there pumping iron that much. But it's mechanics mostly, teaching them proper mechanics, keeping a very structured situation as far as throwing and developing that thought process, correct?
Keeping them, yeah. So basically moving better. I I think the biggest thing that gets overlooked, it's got a lot of attention, but workload too. I mean, you got to watch their workloads. You got to make sure they're not throwing as many in-game pitches as a high school kid or a college kid, obviously. I think that's the biggest thing, is just kind of managing their workloads. And again, I don't always put this on the coaches because, those young guys are playing a lot more games. So it's almost hard not to have somebody be overused when you're playing a bunch of games each weekend. But it's you got to find a way to manage that as a coach, but it is tough. So trying to teach those guys proper workloads, just because they want to play every game doesn't mean they should, just because it is difficult. But yes, teach them how to move the best way they can athletically. And then I think workload's the biggest thing for those young guys.
I'd agree.
Very good. I like the fact that, and this goes, I'm going to throw this in there because I've talked about this on the youth side of it, maybe these teams starting to carry 12, 13 kids at 11, 12 because of that thought process. How many more kids can you have? And it's up to the coach to get the playing time, working, developing. Do you have an extra arm where those things aren't a stress when you got 10 kids
and
you're playing 6 games in a weekend? That's tough.
Well, and I think if people would be open-minded and understand, and I'm not, again, I'm a parent of a ball player too, but trying to get people to understand that, 13, 14, 15 kids, in my opinion, at that level when they start kid pitch and they, and they play that many games, don't think about, hey, I'm paying money, my kid needs to be on the field. Pay money for your kid to play the right amount of time at the right time is my biggest thing. 13 kid rosters are probably bigger than most teams, but it keeps those guys off the field at certain times where they might be on the field the whole time. And that's what kind of works against you, is it's playing time. It should be, the amount of playing time at the right time is what they're, I guess, paying for, is, my opinion,
That's a good thought.
That's an endless conversation.
It is. And I know, I understand.
Believe me. I'm right aligned with Adam on this, but believe me,
it's tough.
You're going down a rabbit hole, buddy.
You know what?
Oh, yeah.
You bring it up, you say something, and you never know,
You see Kevin has.
We could even tie that into the high school level.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You see that, guys go throw a complete game, and then the next day they're playing the left side of the infield, or they throw 6 innings and then they're back at third base or shortstop, and it's not a great recipe for long-term success.
Right.
Tough decisions. Boy, I opened that up, didn't I?
I'm done talking about it.
Oh, man. Final thoughts, Kevin, anything?
No, this was great. It's kind of cool to take a look at things. Obviously, kids are throwing harder and harder these days, and I would like to think pitching better and better. So it's fun to have Adam on and to talk about some of the processes, the process of the off season. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Obviously, thank you, Adam, for taking the time and giving knowledge, because people don't know what they don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I personally obviously know Ace and Adam. They do a fantastic job. I've had a lot of kids through there, kids there now. So, but yeah, thank you, and keep doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of the show, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much.
He puts it on at night when he wants to go to bed.
Whatever works.
Hey, a little known fact, I have watched every episode, by the way. I'm very proud of that. Not even kidding either.
I haven't even watched every episode.
Hey, it's,
we
always
appreciate
learning.
the support. And we're this is what this is about, getting people like you on. We've got Matt, Kevin, bringing knowledge, and that's what, Matt said there, alluded to, having these conversations about youth and high school baseball, I think is important for parents, because there's so many times people are like, oh, what do I do? You get into those, the recruiting stuff, and Kevin brings so much information on that side of it. I think it's just important that we can get together. If people are paying attention, parents, doing the right things for their kids, and everybody wants that. That's really, in the end, parents just want to do what's good for their kids, and so we hope we do that. Adam, we'd love to have you back on, man. Come back and see us. We'll get him back on here talking some more development. I would like to talk a little bit more too about the other side of that, the position player development side. That's interesting.
Definitely.
Outstanding.
Anytime. Thank you, guys.
Folks, thanks for tuning in. Please, if you like what we're doing, first time watching, hit the subscribe button. Right next to it is that dinger. Hit that dinger, because that's what we do around here.
We hit dingers.
That's right. That will get you all your notifications for upcoming episodes of the show. And we appreciate that very much. You can also listen to us, listen to the audio podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Spreaker. Those will be up 3 o'clock Central Standard Time every Tuesday and Thursday. So till that time, everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes, and hitters,
hit them where they ain't.
That's good advice.
Good advice.
He knows it, right? We'll see y'all next time.